They always assumed we were harmless. That was their first mistake. For 86 years, Earth had sat within the Galactic Council. We obeyed their codes, stayed quiet in the back rows, applauded on command, and surrendered our tech like obedient little primitives. They mocked our history, sneered at our violent past, and claimed we were finally civilized by joining them. What they never realized was that we were only pretending. I remember the moment it all shifted. I was stationed on Echelon Prime, the supposed jewel of council diplomacy. Polished spires, shining skies, self-important species with soft fingers and frozen hearts. I wasn't a soldier anymore. They called me Human Liaison Officer, which really meant domesticated Earthling, grinning whenever the real powers arrived. But when the council voted to sanction Earth for disobedience, I felt it begin. They claimed we withheld full disclosure of our military archives, that we had broken their sacred trust. Trust? There had never been any. We'd given them fusion reactors, medical cures, climate stabilizers. We gave them everything. They gave us commands. And when we asked to keep one defensive protocol classified, they acted like we'd committed atrocities. The sanctions weren't even the worst part. The real wound came when they handed our orbital defense grid over to the Drankari. That cold-blooded lizard breed despised us. Always had, always would. They called us apes chasing crowns we'd never wear. The council thought putting them in charge of Earth's skies would send a lesson. It did. It told every human alive we were never equals to them. Our role was servitude, never sovereignty. The first strike came 11 days later, not on some front, not in deep space, but on a refugee station above Titan, a council vessel, piloted by a Drankari officer, accidentally drove a kinetic spear through its hull. 2,000 civilians gone, mostly children and healers. They called it equipment failure. I saw the feed. It wasn't failure. Next dawn, Earth recalled every diplomat from council space. No shouting, no threats, just gone. 3 days later, our comm relays went silent. Not jammed, not shattered, simply shut down, like someone cut the cord. Then came quiet. What they never grasped, what no one in that shining chamber ever thought to ask, was why Earth had stayed so still for so long. They assumed it was fear. It wasn't. We were constructing, preparing, not out of desire for war, but certainty of it. By the time the council sensed the silence, the trap was already set. They sent a recon fleet to check on Earth. 5 capitals, a dozen cruisers, over 50 fighters, each armed with top-tier sensors and translators, all primed, expecting to catch us breaking some rule. None of them came back. Council command blamed anomalies. A gravity flare, a collapsed star, anything but truth. I'd heard the excuses before. They couldn't admit Earth had stopped pretending. The day it became undeniable, I sat in a chamber, packed with smug diplomats who still sneered at us. Their faces froze when the alert came through. An entire station on the Phyrexian rim, erased. No attackers sighted, no distress call, just wreckage and a single message written in perfect Galactic code: you struck first. Earth ends it. The chamber fell silent. One elder, a brittle 12-limbed relic from Joltari, finally spoke the words no one dared. Earth has turned renegade. I said nothing. Just listened. Truth was, we hadn't gone rogue. We were finally showing our real selves. They called it miscommunication. Even after 3 more listening posts blinked out. No distress, no sign, just obliterated. They denied it was us. Phyrexian was only the spark. We didn't launch nukes. We didn't move fleets. That would have been too simple. We did worse. We disappeared. Earth went dark. No ships, no envoys, not even smugglers. Like we folded the planet into shadow. Every outpost cut its beacon. Every eye-line severed. Even research links lost access overnight. And still the council clung to their comfort, convinced we were tame, the pets they could bind with decrees, frightened with fleets, shame into silence. They didn't see we just waited for them to cross the mark. I was one of the last humans in council halls. Officially an observer. In truth, an agent, and not alone. Across council space, dozens more hid in plain sight, not striking, but watching. And when the moment arrived, we weren't just striking back, we were sending a lesson. The next blow landed on the Hadrix array, that sprawling research nexus circling Krell's twin suns. Guarded by 3 fleets, 30 autogrids, and 8 planetary stations, half the council's funding poured into it. Their prize tool for charting dark matter storms. Instead, they charted their ruin. I'll never forget the broadcast that followed. Brief, cutting, human, we gave you peace. You gave us graves. The council convoked an emergency summit. Not the usual circle of a dozen elites, but all 300 species packed in. They spun it hard. Earth had lost reason. Earth was compromised. Maybe hijacked by the Zeke Hive or a rogue AI, anything but the truth. That the quiet partner of the galaxy had become its fiercest enemy. They wanted someone to blame. And they chose me. At dawn, 2 guards pulled me from my chamber. No trial, no charges, just iron grips that promised pain. They dragged me into the high chamber, the council's ceremonial court for their greatest fears. Years ago, it had felt grand. Now it was a tomb, the galleries brimmed with races. No applause, no fury, only dread. Irchon Tummer presided, bloated. Skin shimmering, silver gills pulsing as his voice oozed like oil. Human Alexander, you stand accused. What do you say for these devastations? I stood still, eyes sweeping the crowd. Some flinched, others sought comfort in my gaze. I gave them none. What did you expect? My words cracked through the chamber. You gave our skies to enemies. You killed our children, then you named us violent. Telmer's face stiffened. Your world was offered unity. You rejected it. No, I snapped. We honored unity. We gave you tech you barely grasped. We cured your plagues. We restrained ourselves for peace, but every gift bred more greed. The one time we refused, you answered with slaughter. A heavy pause lingered. Then a Visari elder, fox-like and sly, spoke. You expect us to believe Earth would willingly isolate and wage war? I shook my head. You still don't understand. You think we need you. Then the lights died. Not just here, the whole spire. Council grids were fail-proof. EMPs, solar storms, quantum ripples. But this wasn't failure. This was a declaration. Red sirens flared. Guards scrambled. Coms blared. Everyone looked lost except me. I already knew. Earth had slipped inside their veins and shut them down. A comms officer burst in. External links gone. Planetary net offline. Orbital defenses silent. Chaos, glorious chaos. Evacuation codes failed. Gates frozen. The capital's core locked tight. Earth had caged them with a whisper. No firepower needed. Telmer's voice broke, trembling with something new, fear. What are your governments? Terms? I only smiled. There are no terms. This isn't bargaining, this is revelation. For a century you thought us softened, domesticated. Thought comfort smothered our flame, I advanced. Guards didn't bar me, too busy with dead weapons. The truth? We always knew you for what you were, arrogant, bloated, fragile, and we knew you'd betray us. So we prepared, patiently, quietly, without pause. Now their fleets were the first to burn. It started with whispers, supply lines cut forward. Stations abandoned, entire convoys lost without distress signals. At first the council claimed it was pirates. Then they claimed it was a plague. But the truth arrived in the form of wreckage, drifting through neutral sectors. Silent hulks branded with a single mark, the Earth insignia. Scorched into the hulls like a signature. The Drankari screamed for retaliation, demanded joint fleets to strike Seoul directly. But no one volunteered ships. Not the cautious Vazari, not the calculating Jaltari, not even the war-burned Torgoth. Fear had seeped into their bones. If Earth could turn off the galactic capital like a lamp, what chance did their fleets have alone? By day 6, the fractures widened. Alliances that had held for centuries buckled under paranoia. Border patrols began firing on each other over imagined incursions. Entire species closed their gates, locking down worlds, pulling ambassadors home. The council chamber, once the heart of galactic unity, became an echoing theater of empty seats. I watched it unravel from my cell. The irony wasn't lost on me. After decades of being treated as the dangerous outsider, humanity didn't have to fire a single shot to tear the galaxy apart. All we did was vanish, and in the silence we left behind, the council destroyed itself, trying to fill the void. On day 7, a final transmission slipped through the blackout. No one knew how it got past Earth's firewalls. No one even knew if it was meant for the council or just me. It was the same man from before, the one with the gray streaks and the quiet voice. He looked directly into the feed, and his words were simple. The galaxy always feared what humans might do if they lost everything. What you never understood is that we already did, twice. The message ended. No follow-up, no demands. Just silence. And for the first time, the galaxy truly believed it. She didn't wait for me to answer. Just turned and walked, expecting me to follow. Her steps were precise. Too smooth to be natural, like every movement was calculated 3 frames ahead of time. Where? I asked finally, my voice rough from disuse. Off record, she replied without looking back. Your council calls it extraction. Your people call it something else. The corridor outside my cell was empty, which was strange. I'd expected guards, alarms, resistance. No response. And the more silent we stayed, the more desperate they became. By the 3rd month, 3 major species had started openly broadcasting messages into deep space. Earth, we are ready to talk. Humanity, the council is no more. We seek. Alliance, we admit our mistakes. We beg your return. It would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. They never learned. They still thought Earth was just another player. What they didn't understand was that Earth was never playing their game. We'd just been watching. And now we were building our own. One night I was summoned again by the nameless commander. This time he looked different, older somehow, worn out. Handed me a data slate. New mission, he said. You're going back. I stared at them. Back where? Council space. I blinked. You just saved me as a diplomat, as a reminder. He tapped the slate. A list of coordinates, names, locations of key surviving council figures, leaders, scientists, military chiefs. Some of them are trying to rebuild the council quietly behind closed doors. Same hierarchy, same arrogance. We're not going to stop them. Why not? Hesmald again, cold quiet. Because we want them to rebuild, then we take it. That was Earth's final play. Let the galaxy patch itself back together just enough to stand. Then seize it, not with guns, but with presence, with control, quietly, strategically. We'd become the shadow behind every trade agreement, the architect behind every treaty, the ghost in every planetary system. We weren't there to be part of the galaxy anymore. We were here to own it. So I took the mission back into council space, back into the ruins of an empire that once laughed at Earth. I walked among them like a ghost. No badge, no announcement, just eyes and ears. And everywhere I went, I saw the same thing. Fear. Whispered Earth's name like it was a god or a curse. Some blamed us for everything. Some begged for our return. But none of them dared raise a weapon because they all knew now humanity was never civilized. We were just polite. And we'd stopped being polite the moment they thought they could control us. The first lesson we taught them was fear. The second lesson was silence. The third, control. I moved like a shadow through the broken corridors of the Council's ruins, rebranded now as the Unified Star Alliance. Some desperate attempt to reforge what Earth had shattered. A few species still held on to their titles. Former senators, admirals, delegates, but they all had the same look in their eyes now. They didn't talk to each other without looking over their shoulders. They didn't make decisions without checking first who was listening. And I made sure they knew someone always was. My new identity was clean, fabricated, flawless. The ARC command had burned my real name the second I stepped onto Nexus 3. The person I knew as Adobe didn't exist anymore. I was now an independent tech consultant from a border system, fluent in 16 dialects, licensed in logistics, strategy, AI, infrastructure. The kind of person no one noticed until the wrong system failed at the worst time. Then they listened, and I made sure what they heard was always just enough to keep them dependent. I embedded myself in the Lucari regrowth project first, a fumbling effort to stabilize interstellar trade routes after the collapse of the central banking grid. They were desperate, starving, clinging to the last fragments of Earth's A systems, most of which they barely understood. They didn't know I'd helped design those systems 10 years ago. Didn't know Earth had built them with tripwires and hidden back doors. Didn't know I could crash their entire currency in 10 seconds with a neural flick. Instead, they begged for guidance. We can't get the adaptive chain to sync across the quadrant, their lead systems officer told me one evening, hands trembling over a glowing console. Every time we stabilize one sector, another collapses. It's like the damn thing's infected, I smiled. It's not infected. It's starving. Starving? I leaned closer. It's missing context. These systems were designed to operate alongside human cognitive architecture. Without human oversight, they become unstable. But we can't get Earth back. You don't need Earth. I lied. You need people like me. He looked at me like I was salvation itself. And just like that, the noose tightened. Within 2 weeks, I had access to 63% of the regrowth project's infrastructure. Every credit transaction, every resource trade, every shipment manifest. I wrote protocols in the background. Small changes. Nothing flashy. The kind you wouldn't notice until it was too late. Every time they fixed a glitch, it created a new one elsewhere. Every time they tried to optimize, the system just needed a little more of my help. And every time they called me back, they handed over a little more control. I wasn't the only one. Across former council territories, Earth's operatives moved like smoke. Engineers, advisors, consultants, never soldiers, never with guns. That would have been too obvious. No, we came offering solutions, peace, stability, guidance, and they lapped it up like starving dogs. Because while they spent the last century treating us like wild primitives with a knack for war, we had studied them, understood their psychology, mapped their weaknesses, their pride, their paranoia. We didn't need fleets to conquer them. We just needed access. I got my first glimpse of the new council chamber during a summit on Veltrix Prime. They called it the Coalition of Shared Prosperity, as if renaming the mess would erase the stench of failure. The chamber was smaller now, less formal, fewer species. Most of the old powers had collapsed or withdrawn completely. I wasn't allowed inside, of course, not officially, but I didn't need to be. The chamber's environmental control systems were patched into a logistics network I'd helped stabilize. That meant I could hear everything, every conversation, every bribe, every fear-soaked negotiation. And that's when I heard the phrase for the first time, "We should ask Earth." It came from a Vasari minister. Her voice hushed but heavy with exhaustion. The others didn't argue, not one, not even the Drankari representative. What was left of them anyway? He just nodded and muttered, "If they're still listening." They were all praying who were still listening. And I made damn sure they knew we were. I leaked a memo 3 days later. Not officially, of course, just a simple transmission bouncing off a dozen shadowed relays, worded carefully to sound like it wasn't supposed to be heard. Earth is not interested in resuming full membership. However, Earth is willing to support independent stabilization efforts through experienced human intermediaries. A single sentence, but it changed everything. Suddenly, the requests flooded in. Advisors, mediators, infrastructure analysts, energy grid specialists, not soldiers, not diplomats. Operatives. Earth was now the invisible empire. Our influence severe, our face nowhere. Back on Nexus 3, I reported to the commander in Noni of the Ark's black rooms. Same gray stare, same unreadable expression. He reviewed my updates without speaking. I could feel his mind parsing data faster than any council AI ever could. After a while, he spoke. "You see what's happening?" "Yeah," I said. "They're crawling back one by one. They think they're hiring help. What they're doing is leasing sovereignty." I smirked. "And they won't know they sold it until it's already gone." He leaned forward. "You feel it yet?" "Feel what?" Head up his chest. "The change." I didn't answer right away, but I did feel it. At first, this mission had been about revenge, about making them pay for Titan. For the children, for the lies, for the sanctions, for the way they made humanity gravel while stealing everything we gave them. But now it was something more. This wasn't just punishment. This was evolution. Earth had stopped trying to fit into the galaxy's mold. Now we were reshaping the mold to fit us. Over the next year, Earth redefined Galactic order, without a single official declaration, without a single fleet movement. We controlled trader routes by maintaining them. We monitored communications by repairing old satellites. We ran security by improving defense grids, and the galaxy led us. Because fear is a powerful motivator, and hope is even more dangerous. They hoped we were merciful, hoped we're different this time. Hoped that our silence meant we weren't watching them fail. But we were. Every step, every word, every betrayal, we were there. And soon the phrase echoed louder. In meetings, on broadcasts, across the markets, ask Earth. They called themselves the Heraxis Compact. A minor species really, back in the old Council days, they were barely a footnote. Small cluster of planets, proud culture, no real military strength. They'd contributed little, asked for less. Earth had offered them tech after the war, infrastructure uppers, system backups. They declined it all. At first, that didn't matter. Not every species welcomed our help. We weren't handing out leaflets or offering friendship. We offered stability control. You could accept it and survive, or reject it and rot. The Horrocks, they did something different. They didn't rot. They thrived without Earth. They rebuilt their damaged systems manually. They restructured their economy without tapping into the Lucari Earth-backed markets. They ignored regrowth protocols, even blocked the Arc-linked data lanes. In a broken galaxy crawling back to its feet, Heraxis stood on their own and made sure who saw it. That made them dangerous. Not because they were strong, but because they were proof that it was possible to say no to Earth and live. That kind of defiance was contagious, and we couldn't allow contagion. I was sent in undercover, not with weapons, not with soldiers, with a smile as usual. My new identity was diplomatic this time. A trade envoy from the Reconstruction Coalition, some fake initiative backed by council remnants who didn't exist anymore. But no one listened anymore. Truth didn't matter. Perception did. 1v1, their alliances cracked. Trade collapsed. Imports slowed. Internaliates began, and Earth watched. But they didn't collapse. They didn't come begging. Instead, they turned inward, retreated from interstellar politics, went dark voluntarily, canceled all diplomatic channels. They became their own fortress. Their silence was louder than any scream, and it worked. For the first time since Earth began its silent rise, Someone had resisted long enough to survive it. That wasn't a win. It was a warning. So the final order came through. Simple, cold. One line. End it. I volunteered. I had to. I'd been there since the beginning. I saw their eyes, their pride, their hope. And I knew if I let them stand, more would follow. More would question Earth. And Earth wasn't in the business of buying question. I arrived in the middle of a solar eclipse. Fitting, in a poetic way, a shadow overtaking the light. The Heraxis. Prime chamber was empty, abandoned hours before I landed. They knew. They were waiting. I found Prime Executive Thracian deck of their capital's tower. Same calm eyes, same voice. You're not here to negotiate. No. You're not here to kill me either. No. She turned back to the view. You're here to erase us. She wasn't afraid. Not even bitter. Just tired. You held longer than anyone, I said. You stood up when others begged. And it changed nothing. It changed everything. She turned back toward me. Her voice was a whisper. They'll come for you one day. I shook my head. Remember, we don't give them time to build dreams anymore. We didn't drop a bomb, didn't fire a missile. We buried them in silence. Within 48 hours, every Heraxis system was flagged as a quarantine zone. Every frequency was jammed, every jump route rerouted. Their names were wiped from trade logs, navigation charts, cultural archives. It was as if they'd never existed. Even their memory was deleted digitally, socially, economically. And Earth moved on like we always do. But something changed in me. I didn't report back for 2 weeks. Spent the time in silence aboard a dark ship, floating just beyond the Heraxis border, watching. I thought I'd feel satisfaction, but all I felt was a question I couldn't answer. At what point do we become the thing we destroyed? Then a transmission came through, unofficial, unregistered from a Heraxis satellite that should have been offline. It was just a voice, Thix's voice. To whoever is listening, we are still here. We are still standing. We don't need you to remember us. We just need you to know Earth can be defied. The signal cut, but a message had already spread. It was intercepted, echoed, reposted in the darknets, pirated onto forgotten colonies, carved into spaceport walls. Not a call to arms, just a reminder. Earth wasn't a god. Earth could bear assisted. And that was the beginning of our first real threat. Not from Heraxis, but from the idea they left behind. It started with a whisper. On a backwater station near the Cradle Dust Rings, a bartender handed a drink to a freight runner and said, "They say the Heraxis are still alive." The freight runner laughed. "They're ghosts, man. Earth wiped them." The bartender didn't argue. Just slid another glass across the bar. By morning, a message had been carved into the bathroom wall. Earth can be defied. 2 days later, that same message appeared in a hidden data stream, buried beneath the Coalition's Secure Com network. Just 6 words scrolling endlessly. No signature, no location, but everyone knew where it came from. Heraxis, or what was left of it. Thefrays spread like radiation, appearing in trade logs, in cargo crates, in corrupted security feeds, graffiti. On bulkhead doors, inscribed into AMA shipments. Not loud, not violent, just everywhere. No one said it out loud, not in public, but they all read it, they all knew. Earth had made one mistake. It silenced Zeta people, and in doing so made them eternal. At Nexus 3, they called it a glitch. At Nexus 5, they labeled it a psychological blip. But at Nexus 1, the Arc Core Command didn't speak at all. They just listened, and they watched. Bimonth 2, 6 minor colonies that had requested Earth-backed support, quietly pulled their applications. No official reason, no press releases, just withdrawals. By month 3, 2 of Earth's front companies were attacked. Small-scale cyber strikes, nothing critical, but they left messages behind. You are not invisible. This is not your galaxy. We remember. The names attached to the attacks were aliases, but the code, It was Haraxis made. Somehow in the middle of total isolation, they'd found a way to talk to the galaxy. And worse, the galaxy was starting to talk back. I was pulled into ARC command again. Same cold room, same lights, but the commander wasn't Alana this time. There were 5 others, men and women I hadn't seen before. Clean-cut, focused. The kind of people who didn't blink unless told to. Weary initiating. Phase Omega, the commander said. Containment isn't enough. Influence isn't enough. What's the mission? I asked. He turned the hollow map toward me. Red flares blinked across it. Colonies with increased Haraxis sympathies. Trade routes now consider Dunstal. Stations with increased pirate activity, political dissent, or sudden technological independence. These systems aren't rejecting US best, they hate us, he said. They're rejecting us because for the first time, they think it's possible. And it is, one of the others muttered. Everyone turned toward him. He didn't flinch. We didn't kill Haraxis, he said. We buried their systems, their satellites, their cities, but we didn't erase them. They're still alive somewhere, broadcasting through ghost channels, feeding information. To the outer colonies. And Earth doesn't tolerate infection, I said. The commander nodded. You're going back into council space. Quiet, no credentials, no backup. Find the leak, find the voice and silence it. I looked at the map again. So many red dots, too many. It won't be one voice, I said quietly. It's an echo now, then kill the echo. My infiltration began on Lunar 9, a mining colonier biting a gas giant in the outskirts of the old Vizari Empire. Haraxis sympathies were rumored, but no direct connection had been confirmed until I arrived. It wasn't Banner's Oriets. That's not how rebellion works when you're living under Earth's shadow. It was eyes. The way people looked at me when I said I was from the Reconstruction Coalition, polite, still but cold. Then I saw it scratched into the underside of a fuel pipe in the service. We remember Titan. That was the first time in years I felt something break inside me. The Titan massacre. 2,000 civilians bombed by council ships under Drari command. Earth's children. Earth's medics. They died silently. And Earth had waited. Built, burned the galaxy down for it. But someone else, Summian Forgotten, had carried that name too. Titan hadn't been erased. It had been remembered, not by Earth, but by Haraxis. The rebel cell on Lunar 9 Wasmo. Careful. They didn't organize openly. Didn't march or protest. They printed books, actual books, pages, ink. Untraceable. One of them made its way into my hands from a cargo runner who thought I was one of them. Just a slim volume, no author. Title, When Earth Blinked. I read it in one sitting. It didn't accuse. Earth didn't scream. It just asked questions. What does peace look like when it's held at gunpoint? If a species must trade its voice for survival, has it truly served? Can you love your savior and still fear them? The final page held one sentence. Earth's silence was the loudest sound we ever heard. I stared at that line 4 hours. Then I burned the book, not because I wanted to, but because I understood its power. Words were becoming weapons, and Earth was bleeding from 1,000 paper cuts. Command wanted names, locations, maps off resistance movements. They sent me deeper. Krell Station, Droth Prime Sundive Belt. Everywhere I went, the same message echoed. We are not enemies, but we are not yours. And with every echo, Earth's grip loosened. Not all at once, not in flames, but in quiet withdrawals. In sectors that didn't respond fast enough. In council advisors who went dark, in ARC operatives who suddenly vanished. It wasn't collapse, it was erosion. And no one was stopping it, not even me, because something had started to change in me. I used to believe in Earth's dominance, in the logic behind our vengeance, our silence, our cold control. But now I'd seen what Earth had overlooked. The fire Earth feared was never rebellion, it was memory. We'd erased the Herax's planets, but not the truth. Eventually, I found them. Or maybe they found me. It was on Vassar's grave, a rogue asteroid colony outside legal space. I followed a signal, ghost-coded, bouncing off a dozen abandoned relays. I expected a hideout. What I found was a sanctuary. No weapons, no guards, just people. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Engineers, teachers, refugees, some ex-Concel, some ex-Coalition. One of them was Heraxus. Old, scarred, one arm gone, face weathered. He looked at me the moment I entered and said, "You're here to kill the story." I didn't answer. He poured me a drink, sat beside me. "You were there, weren't you, at the Council Spire when Earth pulled the plug?" I nodded. "And you still think this path leads to peace?" I didn't know anymore. He leaned back, closed his eyes. "Do you know what Heraxus feared the most?" "What? That one day we'd win?" That stopped me cold. Win what? This war of silence, the control. Thepawar, that we'd become like Earth, that we'd forget. Why we resisted. And did you? He opened his eyes. Number Earth did. That night I sent a message to Nexus, just 5 words. "We may have gone too far." No reply came. None ever would, because Earth doesn't apologize. Earth doesn't ask. Earth decides. But for the first time, Earth wasn't the only one deciding. The whispers had grown too loud. Too many people had started remem.